animal banditry and cattle rustling. It has wreaked havoc in the Kerio Valley Triangle. Remember, in the year 2016 and 2017, properties were destroyed and also lives were lost in the region. Maybe it's some of the reasons why the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights is here today, led by their chairperson, who is, I'm told, Mbogoria Kagwiria, just to paint a picture of what is happening here, even as we wait for the commission to launch its report. Thank you very much. I understand that you are here today in the Uasin Gishu, and you're focusing basically on North Rift region, where we have Samburu, Turkana, Elgeyo Marakwet, and also Baringo. Today, you're going to launch a report. Maybe as residents of the North Rift region, what should we expect?
Thank you very much. We conducted a public inquiry on insecurity and its impact on the enjoyment of human rights in the Northern Rift. This was as a result of complaints and a lot of insecurity incidents that had happened, and we were responding per case back. And then some leaders from this region came to meet us in Nairobi, came to the office here in Kitale, and also came to our headquarters in Nairobi and requested us to really assist them. So we made a decision, and we conducted a public inquiry on insecurity in the Northern Rift. And this public inquiry, we conducted it in several counties in the Northern Rift, including, as you've pointed out, Turkana, West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, especially South Baringo itself, and especially East Pokot, and other regions of the southern Baringo, and other counties in the Northern Rift. We met. I think we held public inquiries in about 19 places in these areas. Talked to thousands of Kenyans and received testimonies from persons who had been affected. We also talked to duty bearers, and with duty bearers we mean those who are who hold certain offices and who are knowledgeable in terms of the interactions and the impact of this insecurity. Our report today is here, and we put together a report which we have already presented to the speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate for deliberation and for their information. And it is entitled Mending the Rift. So really our whole thrust as a national commission is that is to contribute to mending the Northern Rift so that the citizens who live in these parts of the country can enjoy security and also enjoy the full spectrum of the rights that the Constitution of Kenya guarantees to them. Yes.
Okay. Even as we wait for the launching of the report, do you have any findings that maybe had violated human rights in the region?
Okay, in our report, which is here, we looked at what were the causes of the conflict, and we were investigating or interrogating the causes of the conflict. We found that there were historical reasons. We also found that some of the reasons were cultural. In some of the places we visited, we found that the cultural practices have got very high or steep bride price costs. And for some of the young men who graduate in the cultural festivals as men and are expected to marry, are forced to really push out and rustle cattle or livestock in order to be able to meet the cost of livestock. And these cultural practices have contributed to the prevailing insecurity in the region. We also found that there are also political reasons, and in terms of this, there are certain politically instigated conflicts, which then points a finger to leaders in the region. There are others. When we talked about historical, we say that it is about boundaries which are contested. And we also feel that, especially when we moved to devolved government, then the boundaries of from one county to the other became a big factor now, whereas in the past it was not such a big issue. But with devolution, I think there was kind of like an expansionist ambitions by some of the leaders, and this created a lot of conflict with the communities that are bordering or which are where the county boundaries are. And we've had a lot of conflicts in this as a result of this. The other thing is that we were also looking at the spectrum of the human rights that had been violated as a result of this protracted lack of security, and one of our findings was that the lives that have been lost in these conflicts were astronomical, and if we lose even one life in any conflict, that's something to be really deeply saddened about. But when you're losing very young people and children and mothers and all that, and even the young Morans, it is terrible. It is terrible. The other thing we found that is that in the Northern Rift, education has lagged behind so much because of the frequent interruptions of education. In many of the schools, there were no teachers. Sometimes where there were teachers, the ratio was like one teacher to almost 110 pupils, which is way outside even the national average in Kenya. And in some places, schools were completely closed, because the environment is not conducive for learning. We also found that a lot of property was lost. A lot of people reported losing a lot of livestock, and livestock for pastoralists is the lifeline. And a lot of houses were torched and burned, which meant even the belongings in those habitations were also burnt through arson or criminal activity. Life and limb, I've talked about that. A lot of people were injured. We met quite a number of persons who lost limbs or were otherwise really grievously injured. And therefore, we felt that even the security of the person was very compromised. I will talk about healthcare. In a lot of these places, access to healthcare was almost non-existent. The people are left to the mercy of God in a very harsh environment. And therefore, you can imagine that even treatable diseases, people are dying of them. We also had reports of a lot of mothers dying during childbirth, especially if there was any complications. In East Pokot, for instance, we met, I think the only health center was in Chamolingot and Kapido. and the Kapido is at the boundary, and it's a contested area with the Turkana and whatever. But there's a good health center there. The next one was in Chamolingot. So the whole of Tiati, it was just this expanse with nothing. The other thing we found actually is that infrastructure is terrible. And it was good that we actually traveled to these places by road. So we really suffered. And even as others have, the residents of these areas have suffered, there is no road from Kapenguria to Lodwa, if you please. And even recently, in these rains, the bridge which connects Pokot to Turkana at Kainuk was washed away. It's now been repaired. But we are talking about a really huge area which has no infrastructure, including, even at the time, Safaricom or other cell phone telephony infrastructure, which meant even us communicating was very difficult.
Lastly, as we await the leaders from the region, Samburu, Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, and West Pokot counties, were there any recommendations to that?
We've made several recommendations. I think you will have to wait for when we read out our recommendations. And also we have we will avail and have availed copies of our report to the leaders. And now our work will be to try and follow up so that at least we can try and see the extent to which our recommendations will be taken on board, because we feel that if they are taken on board, we'll begin to mend the rift.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Of course, you'll keep us posted. That was Kagwiria Mbogoria, the chairperson of Kenya National Commission on Human Rights here in Uasin Gishu County, even as we await leaders from West Pokot, Baringo, Samburu, and Elgeyo Marakwet County. And as I had mentioned before, these are the regions that have been covering for long, and I'm told that's an inquiry between May to July 2016, where we are told that cattle rustling and even suspected raiders believed to be from neighboring community have been wreaking havoc in the region. So of course we're waiting for the recommendation and also leaders from these regions. Betty.
All right, Elvis Koski there reporting from Uasin Gishu County. We'll be getting